Thank you very much, Isaiah. And that sort of reminds me of that old Mythbusters thing where there was this thing where if you fell from a high place above water, if you could take a sledgehammer or a hammer and you threw it into the water before you hit the water, it would break the surface tension before you got there. You had a chance to survive.
I've never heard of that myth.
It was proven you can't do that. But anyway, Mike Baudendistel will join us for our Stock Out Communities segment here now. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. And now some interesting things coming out here with CPG as related to you've got different prices now coming in for food, as is the Wall Street Journal reports. But you've got an interesting interview coming up with an old friend of ours, Phil Schmidbauer.
That's right. I'll talk about the interview first. So you'll be interviewing Phil Schmidbauer. He's the director of analytics at ODW, logistics company, this afternoon on the Stock Out at 2 o'clock Eastern time. And we've had Phil on a number of times on FreightWaves, and this time we're going to dig into CPG. One of their big verticals is food and beverage. So really want to hit on topics that are, really sort of relevant for those companies. And some of the things that, we're planning to discuss are things like how CPGs can build resilience into their supply chain. I mean, that's something that we've heard a lot about from CPGs companies the last couple of years is they don't want to go through what they went through during COVID, which was trucks not showing up, not having the right ingredients, not having the right packaging. So they're doing things like finding additional suppliers, adding redundancy to those networks, adding additional warehouses. So I wanted to see sort of really what Phil's seeing in the field from ODW and their customers, and then really how CPG companies can position themselves for the eventual tightening in the freight markets. Of course, freight markets are loose. We don't know for how long. It's not going to be that way forever. But how should CPGs sort of think about that, really manage those carrier relationships so they are taken care of when this thing eventually turns. So I think that's an important topic. I think the topic of how CPGs can avoid these on-time and in-full fees. I think it's safe to say the relationship with retailers and CPG companies may be a little strained right now, not on the same page at all about what CPG prices should be when you've had commodity prices come down. Whereas CPG prices are still rising. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then all this stuff about modal optimization. Can you save costs by moving LTLs, shipments into truckloads into intermodal units? And ODW has a good plan they have in place for if there's really is the demise finally of Yellow. So we're going to talk about that as well. So a lot of good topics there. And, I can give you some thoughts on that. You mentioned the Wall Street Journal article over the weekend on the disconnect between CPG prices and the rest of the food. So basically, the issue is, a lot of these commodity prices have come down for agriculture, and so you're seeing that in some of the fresh or less processed types of foods. So things like milk, meat, even eggs, those type of things. Whereas the stuff in the center of the grocery store, which is the less healthy stuff, processed. You think about things like cereals, snack items, those type of things. Those are still up like 15% plus year over year. And that was on top of being up that much on percent basis, up double digits the previous year. So those are high, haven't come down. There's been sort of that spread between what's fresh foods and processed foods has declined. So maybe there's less excuse to not eat healthy. Thought the article, hit on a lot of good reasons why that is. I mean, some of these longer supply chains in CPG cause them to adjust, less quickly. CPG are still kind of trying to make up for margin degradation they experienced during the pandemic. So they feel like they still have some margin catch up to do. So there's a lot going on there. But I think sort of the bottom line is the CPG companies really haven't seen the elasticity in sales volume to encourage them to reduce prices. They don't feel like they have to do that. Now, there's been a lot of talk about moving to private label, and there's been some sales declines, but they've been kind of 2-3% sales declines after raising the prices 15%. So I think most CPG companies would take that.
And Mike, this might be a shot in the dark, but do you have any idea what the lead time or lag time might be for if we start to see some downward movement in some of the fresh food items to CPG? Has there ever been any kind of study, or is there any kind of data points that show, okay, this is coming down, maybe we can expect CPG prices to come down in the next 6 months?
So it's not a one-to-one correlation, certainly. With the CPG items, you have a lot of manufacturing costs that go into that, a lot of labor costs that go into that. There's more touch points in the supply chain. Like I said, the supply chains are longer. So like to give an example, like, you think about Oreo cookies, it's taking palm oil from Indonesia as one of the key ingredients. So you really have these long, sort of complicated supply chains. Whereas the fresh foods, you're moving corn from Iowa or produce from California or something. It's just a lot less that goes into that. And the CPG companies, they really, feel that what enables them to have the margins they do is the demand for their brand name. And so they feel like, oftentimes, and people will pay up for that brand name because they know what they're getting. And so CPG companies really don't reduce prices all that much. What they will do sometimes is, you get buy one get one free, those type of deals, which is really kind of the main topic right now on Wall Street with CPG companies is are they just going to be sort of get too antsy about sales volume and have too many promotional activities, buy one get one free type deals, and that's going to cut into their margin.
So really, you're just saying is there's no panic, or not to say no panic, but there's not much worrying for CPG companies that certainly service, as you say, the middle of the supermarket in terms of what they need to be going for, going up against the prices from the produce aisles on the outside that seem to be going down there as well. In terms of any type of shift in the future, do you see anything that makes them, hey, maybe we may not drop prices in the future just because we would like to make an extra buck here or there?
Yeah, certainly CPG companies like to do that. What their benchmark is they look at 2018, 2019, and they say, well, that's where we want our margins to be, at least, if not higher. Now, most of the CPG companies, their margins are lower than that because there was a big hit during the pandemic. And usually when inflation creeps up, their costs are going to rise faster than the on-shelf prices because it takes time for those agreements they have with retailers to roll over into new agreements that they can raise prices, and so they're still feel like they're in that catch-up mode, and they cite all these other costs like labor. But usually what CPG companies do is those prices do tend to be sticky for those packaged food items, packaged personal care items, that once they get to a certain level, and if there's more room in that margin, what they'll do instead is maybe just keep the prices stable for an extended period of time instead of always having taking them up and down. And if there's too much in stock, they'll do some kind of special promotional activity to reduce the stock. A lot of times the retailer will be in charge of that. So, but oftentimes it's with the CPG company's approval. So they like their prices to not go lower, and for consumers to feel like they're getting a deal when there is too much in stock.
Mike, amazing insights as always. If people want to get more of your content or tune in for that upcoming episode of Stock Out, how can they do that?
Yes, check out the Stock Out this afternoon, 2:00 Eastern time. We do that live. And if you'd like to sign up for the newsletter, you can just go to www.freightwaves.com/the Stock Out.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. It'd be a great episode to watch. We've had Phil on our show, of course, many times, and he's a great interview and a guest as well. Looking forward to it as well. Thanks so much.
Great. Good to see you guys.